I'm going to attempt to make some videos of how I measure my shoes, and they'll probably come in segments because if I attempt to make a whole one, I always mess up. So this is the first segment. Make sure that you are using a soft measuring tape to measure. That's really important because if you use like anything else, then the measurements will be off. And this is what I've been using since the beginning of time to measure my patterns and to measure my shoes before they go out. So if you want your measurement to be accurate with mine, then you need to use a soft measuring tape. I've cut this up because I've been using it. I use one measuring tape and I cut it up because I lose these a lot, and so I just keep one and I just change the inches. So that's what that is all about. So this is 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inches, 4 inches, 5 inches. It's really important that you start measuring on the 0 and not on the 1. Like a lot of people, especially when they use these to measure, which you shouldn't, they'll put the edge of the sole on the 1 mark because, I don't know, maybe they think that this is in the way and they need to start measuring there, but then you miss that whole inch. So for example, they'll start measuring here and they're like, why is my shoe a whole inch off? And that's why. You need to start measuring on the 0, but don't use those. Use these on the 0. Okay, so that's the first segment. So this is my measuring tape that I use, and I've written all the sizes down on my measuring tape so that I can just quickly measure and make sure it's measuring correctly. This is the actual shoe measurement from sole to toe, the shoe, not the foot, not your foot measurement. This is like the shoe measurement. So like a newborn shoe should measure right at 4 inches. A size 1 should measure at 4.25 inches. A size 2 should measure at 4.5 inches. And I know my ruler's kind of confusing, so just bear with me. And like a size 3 should measure right at 5 inches. A size 5 should measure 5.5. A size 6 should measure right at 6 inches. A size 7.5 should measure at 6.5 inches. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so also when you measure, it's important to measure from the very edge of the seam to the longest part of the shoe. So this shoe curves to the left because it's the right shoe. So it curves to the left. So you're going to want to measure, like right here would be the tallest part of the shoe. So you're going to want to put your measuring tape going from right here to right there. Okay, so I'm going to attempt to measure with my big belly and the phone in between my legs. So it's also important that when you use a soft measuring tape that you don't pull tight to measure, because that's not what I do. You just set it loosely on it, and then you can measure. So put your measuring tape at the very, very edge right here. Hold it with your thumb. And like I said, you're going to measure to the longest part of the shoe. So that's measuring at 1 millimeter below the 6 inch mark. And this is a size 6. So that's measuring right on. It's very normal for the shoes to be 1 to 2 millimeters off because they're handmade and leather stretches differently. And it shrinks differently. And like, for example, I could probably take the shoe and stretch out the seams. And it would probably measure right on a 6. I don't know if you can see anything that I'm doing, but I'm gonna try. Yep, see, look, now it's measuring right on a 6, just because I stretched the seams. So that's the variance. That's just how leather is, and stretchiness. And if you get your shoes in there, I could probably shorten this if I wanted by not pressing out the seams. And that might happen if they're being worn and they mold to the foot, then they could shrink to the foot, or they could also be stretched out if you're wearing them for a long time and their feet grow while you're in them. See, and now it's back to like measuring 2 millimeters before the 6 because I pushed all the seams down. But when you measure, it's really important to just press the seams out if you can. Stick your finger in and then you'll get a most accurate measurement. So one more time. Yep. About 1 millimeter below the 6-inch mark. So this is size 6. I'm going to show you how, if you use this, that can be different. So a 6-inch shoe should measure at 6 inches. And if you can tell, you can see how off that is. It's like measuring at 5.75. Just because it's not a soft measuring tape and it just sticks straight. The soft measuring tape is able to lay against and mold against the shoe. See? So that's how you can get different measurements with different instruments that you use, and that's why it's important to use a soft measuring tape. Let's also use a ruler so I can show you. Also with this ruler, see how it has like a couple millimeters of nothing? You'd want to have to start measuring on this line because that is 0. Right here is not 0. Right here is 0. So that can be confusing too and give you a different measurement. So this should be measuring at 6 inches with this ruler. And it is not. Okay, because it's different ruler. It's not these cool soft measuring tapes that I use. Okay. See, again, good example. So let's give another example. Here's a size 5. Size 5 should measure right here, and that is 5.5 inches. See, here's the 5-inch mark, and then the 6-inch mark. Size 5 is at 5.5. So measuring right at where a 5 should be at 5.5 inches. If you were to use this, measure on the same spot. It's measuring almost at 5.5. It's like 5.25. 5.2 a little bit, 5.25. That's probably why your guys' measurements are all under what they're supposed to be. It's because you're using these. Let's do a rubber sole. This is a size 6. It's measuring right at a 6. Maybe like 1 millimeter over. So size 6 should be 6 inches. See, and this is measuring a little bit below 6 inches. And these are probably a little bit easier to measure too.